Today our interview is Pauline Scott. Pauline's been a lifelong resident of Whitley County, and so she's had many experiences here she's going to share with us today. So Pauline, we'll let you start in and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Pauline Scott, Cox Scott I'll say, because my mom and dad was Elmer and Daisy Cox, and I was born here in Washington Township, Whitley County. I lived in Whitley County all my life. My family lived here in Whitley County too. Mom come from Ohio, my dad came from Illinois, and they were married, and they settled here in Whitley County. They lived north of Columbia City in the Thorn Creek Township, and they had 3 children north of Columbia City in Thorn Creek Township. In 1928, my father bought an 80-acre farm in Washington Township, so he moved to Washington Township, and I was born in 1930. My dad moved all the cattle. They herded the cattle down the road to move the cattle down south of Columbia City, which is, I would say, 10, 15 miles at least. But Dad moved his hay with a wagon with horses. And I have a picture. Do you want me to show that picture now?
I'll insert it later.
Okay. I have a picture of Dad moving hay from Thorn Creek Township to Washington Township. They're at the south side of the courthouse. And that's how he's moved his hay down to Washington Township. We didn't, Dad started farming an 80-acre farm. We didn't have an automobile then. We went in horse and buggy because at that time it was a depression and there was 4 of us kids. And Dad wanted to pay for the 80-acre farm, so he didn't have an automobile. So we went in horse and buggy to church every Sunday morning and Sunday night and through the week. I can remember my sisters, they would go down to the barn and clean the milk stools and wash the milk stools off, and they put it in the buggy on the floor. And my 2 sisters sat on the floor, my brother sat on my dad's lap, or my mother's lap I mean, and I stood between Mom and Dad. We didn't have heat in the buggy, and all we did was use a fur rug, bear blankets, what we used. Let's see. Okay. Can I pause here?
Yeah.
I remember helping my dad. I was 6 years old. I started milking cows, and I love milking cows. Dad had about 20 cows. Now, he would let me milk, but I could not strip them because he said when you strip the cows, that's where the cream comes from. So the cows that I milked, Dad went behind me and stripped the cows because he needed that cream. And we sold the milk to Sherman and White. We sold the cream because we separated cream, and the cream went to Sherman White's here in Columbia City. And every day we had cottage cheese. We had a blue granite pan that Mother would get the skimmed milk on. We put it above our range stove, and the heat from the stove soured that milk. And then the next day she would heat that sour milk and put it in a bag and hang it out on the clothesline. So we had cottage cheese every day, and that was really good cottage cheese. But it's better than what it is today. I remember helping Dad mow hay. I loved to mow hay with the horses. We didn't have a tractor. Dad got his first tractor probably in 1940 is when he got his first tractor, but otherwise we farmed by horses. And we made hay with horses. I remember mowing hay with the old mower, and I remember raking hay. And then we made hay with the old, what would we call it, loader behind the wagon. And my job was to stand on the front of the wagon and drive the horses, and then all the hay come on my head. So it was a dirty job, but I enjoyed doing that though too. And when we go to the field again, you don't have supposed to have salt today, but when we went to the field, we'd go to the pump and we put salt in our quart can of water, and we drank that salt water. It'd make us sweat more, I believe, back then. But now you can't have salt to drink. But that's what we drank, a lot of salt water. Dad had pigs, we had cows, we had chickens. Mother raised baby chickens, and I can remember one time my mother came in the house crying, and the weasels had got into our baby chickens at night and killed all the baby chickens. Well, you know, that was a lot of money back then, and she cried because she lost her baby chickens. Dad raised oats, and wheat and corn. And I can remember on Saturday, I hated this job. On Saturday, our job was to go out and husk corn. Mine was the first row by the wagon because I was so little then. And my brother was the second row, and my dad was the third and fourth row. And that's how we husked our corn that year. And then on Saturdays, we had a lot of corn shocks in the field. And we'd shred corn on Saturdays. And that way the corn fodder was in the hay mow. We'd throw that down to the cows to eat. And what they didn't eat off of the leaves and stuff, then we used the stalks for bedding. And then that was hard hauling manure. But we had a lot of shelled corn and a lot of corn fodder and everything. I can remember going out in the field, and my brother, he was ornery. My brother's name was Eldon Cox, and underneath all those corn shocks was mice nests. And he'd chase me with the mice and put them down my back. He was ornery. I hate mice today because it scared me. I get goosebumps all over I see mice. The prices then, our market was at Tonker. We'd go to Tonker for a few groceries, and we'd go to Laud too once in a while. But the most favorite place was Goebbelsville. And Dad would get in the buggy and we'd go to Goebbelsville to get groceries down there. Pence's had a grocery store down at Goebbelsville, so we'd go down there and get a few groceries. But when we wanted to come to town, that's when we got most of the groceries. And every time Mother and Dad went to town once a week to get groceries, and when they went to town, they'd always go down and see her mother because they didn't travel much back then because it was too expensive. That's after we had a car. And I come home from school, and I see that Mom and Dad was gone, so I went to the barn right away to milk cows. I could milk 13 cows one time without stopping. Dad come home and said, "You got all the cows milked?" And I said, "Yes." And I got the bedding done, and the cows are all fed. I hated doing chores late at night. I just hated that because you had to come in and eat supper, and then I had homework to do, from school. But I enjoyed milking cows.
Tell us a little bit about when you went to school. What was your first school? And
My first
how
school,
did you get there?
my first school was Washington Center, which is the community building is there yet, but not the school. They tore that down. I started in 1935 in the first grade, and they had a big furnace underneath the whole building and had one great big register in the middle of the room, and all wood floors, no air conditioner or anything like that. Let's see, I attended all 12 grades at Washington Center. And we had basketball. We didn't have football, but we had basketball and we had baseball. I sang in a sextet from the 6th grade up until graduating in high school. I didn't get to be in band. I wanted to be in band so bad, but my dad could not afford an instrument. So my brother got to rent an instrument from the school. And I can remember the first night he brought this trombone, sliding trombone, home. And we thought that was so funny. So my brother and I went out and got the cows out of the woods and brought the cows up to the barn to be milked. And the cows come running with their tails up in the air into the barn. My dad had a fit, said, "Those cows will not give milk tonight." But they did. My brother and I thought that was funny. But going to school, Eldon was in the band, and I was in the sextet. I sang a lot in the school. We had wood floors. We had home ec, history, and science. But our school was just plain blackboard and wood floors is what it was. The old-fashioned way. No air conditioner or anything like that. We raised the windows for air conditioning.
Did you have to carry your lunch? And how did you do for meals?
We carried our lunch to school, and my job was to fill all the dinner buckets. And my brother liked peanut butter sandwiches with fruit. We canned a lot of fruit. Mother would can about 500 to 700 quarts of stuff every year. So we had all kinds of fruit. We had peaches, cherries, raspberries, apricots. We had apples canned. So all you had to do is fill a little jar of fruit with our lunch bucket. But it was always a peanut butter sandwich with fruit, or maybe a cookie or piece of pie. And one time in my 2nd grade, Joe Wolf was my classmate, and he had pigeon that day for school lunch. And I don't know what I had, but we exchanged our lunch, and I had pigeon that day for lunch.
Was it good?
Yes, it was good, very good. But they ate everything. They ate everything. They never threw anything away. The wolves didn't. But Dad never cleaned pigeon because it's a small bird, like, smaller than a pheasant even. There isn't much meat on it, but it was pretty good, really. I enjoyed school. My mother made all of our clothes. I never had a boughten dress until I was in the 8th grade for 8th grade graduation. But Mother would take feed sacks, and she'd clean the feed sacks or wash them and tear them apart, and that's how we made our dresses, with the feed sacks, the printed feed sacks back then. And now they don't have them today. But my first boughten dress was when I was in 8th grade. Let's see.
How'd you get back and forth to school?
We-
What kind of transportation did
We had a school bus, and that came down the road, an old-fashioned school bus, and there were seats on both sides that you faced each other. They weren't seats like today. And then down the middle, we had a bench. We called that the goat cart. We called that the, what do we call that? I'm blank right now.
So was I don't remember what it-
What's that?
The goat. The goat. We called it the goat. We sat on that. And there's registers underneath that goat. And that's where the heat come out of the bus. But many a times, we never missed much school because the bus would put chains on in bad weather to go through the roads. We never missed much school. And there was times that we got out and pushed, and today you wouldn't be allowed to get out and push a bus or anything. Not today.
You remember your first automobile?
Yes, Dad got a car when I was 6 years old, and it was a used Chevy, because up until that time we used horse and buggy. In that time, I'm not an Amish, but I could live an Amish life. We didn't have electricity, but I remember electricity coming in 1937, and the electricity came to the edge of the house, and I can't remember who put the electricity in the house, but we couldn't afford an electric stove, so we used the range stove yet. We still use the old range. Mom and Dad did not have a bathroom. We had to pump our water or carry our water in. And how we take a bath was put a big tub, great big tub behind the stove, and put warm water in that. And of course everybody had to go to the living room, and we'd take our turns taking a bath then. But that's how we took our baths. We didn't have an inside toilet at all either. We carried the old pot back and forth to the house.
So how did electricity change your way of life when you got electricity at your home?
Oh, I was so tickled when electricity come in because I didn't have to carry the lantern to the barn to see to milk the cows or go out and throw hay down. And then studying. That was the best thing for studying our homework, because you didn't have to go down here and I can't see my homework because we had kerosene lights. And when electricity come in, it was just wonderful. I thought it was the best thing ever happened in Whitley County was electricity.
So you remember when you were growing up, your first automobile that you owned, do you remember your first automobile?
Yes. It was a new Chevy Coupe at that time when I first got married.
What year was that?
1950. In 1950, got a new Chevy Coupe. And, we didn't have two cars back then, so we'd take one person to work, and if I needed a car to go to home ec club in the afternoon, I'd have the car, and then I'd have to go back and get my husband after I got through at club then.
Do you remember how much that car cost, that coupe, Chevy Coupe? You remember what it cost?
No, but I can remember when I got older, we traded two cars in, and all we paid, and we got two new cars, we paid $1,500 for two new cars with a trade-in. And all of them was Chevys at that time. And Dick Dubner was our salesman down at South Willie. I remember him, too. We traded down at South Willie.
What changes have taken place that had the biggest impact on your life or anyone's life here in Whitley County?
I think the way we live, going to the grocery store and things are there for you. You don't have to make everything. You don't have to can everything. And basically, if you want anything, it's in the grocery store today. We don't have garden like we used to. I think that's the biggest change in the food line. And the price, too, because I can remember the price of food back then was pretty cheap. Mom made her own bread, and we had a husker. We called it a husker. We went through the country from Manchester. He sold bread and rolls and different things. He'd come in the evening, and so we didn't have to go to town for bread. But we always had milk. We didn't go hungry because we raised our own food. And we had potatoes, we had cheese, we had chickens, we had eggs, we had beef because we butchered our own beef. And back then, the way we preserved our beef, we didn't have a refrigerator at first because we didn't have electricity, but Mother would can hamburger. And then the pork we would fry down, and we had a great big cement crock, 5-gallon crock. We'd fry that meat down, and then we'd take it down to the basement because our basement was cool. We'd have a layer of grease, then a layer of meat, and a layer of grease, and we filled that crock clear up. And that preserved our meat for the winter then. Then what we'd do when we wanted some for supper, Mother would say we need sausage for supper. And so she would go down, we would go down, or the kids, somebody would go down, take a skillet and take that lard away from the meat and fill that skillet with meat, bring it up and warm it up because the meat had already been fried down. I can remember one time we butchered a pork, and Mother was skinning hog guts. And you don't know anything about the hog guts, probably. But there she was scraping the hog guts, and then she put it in salt water. Well, my brother and I thought that was funny. So we took one of those hog guts and blew it up like a balloon. We thought that was hilarious. But our mouth got sore from the salt water. And we did our own stuffing of sausage, too.
That's how you made your links. You cleaned out
Yes.
the internal organs and cleaned them out and then used that for your covering your sausage, didn't you?
Yes, that made our coverage for the sausage and everything. And we basically ate everything. We ate brains, we ate sweetbread, liver, heart, and tongue. I love tongue.
Yeah.
Tongue is good, but people won't eat it. They'll throw it away. You ate tongue? Oh yeah, that's very good tongue. It's good. Like I said, we didn't go hungry at all. We made our own fun. We made our own bow and arrows. We made our teeter-totters. We had an old wood fence, and we just took a wood plank, and my brother and I used that for a teeter-totter. Till one day I hit him over the head with his hat because he didn't teeter-totter right to suit me. So I hit him over the head with his cap.
Which brother was that, Eldon?
Eldon, I got a scolding for it, of course, yes. I love life in the country because it is so clean. The air is so clean out there, and it's so peaceful and quiet. You can go out and basically do whatever you want to do. It's just wonderful to live in the country rather than city. I said every boy and girl should live in the country, and they should farm or help in the country because that's good education to them. These kids nowadays don't know what it is to work. They need to go out and haul manure, and I hated to haul manure because Dad had threw those corn stalks in the barn for bedding, and on Saturday my brother and I had to haul manure, and that was hard pitching manure. Today now they got more modern stuff and everything like that. One of our horses died. One of the worst things that happened to me when I was growing up. One of our horses, Queenie, that pulled our buggy when we went to church, died. Mom and Dad had gone to town, and the fertilizer plant come back, and they'd get your dead animals at that time. And I had to pull Queenie with a chain and the tractor to the fertilizer truck, and that was hard to do. I told my dad, don't you ever go away when something like this is going to happen, because that was bad on me. I really didn't like to do that. But she was a good horse, so.
How many horses did you have when you farmed there, when you grew up? You remember?
We had 4. And the one time the horse was pregnant, going to have a baby, and my dad borrowed the neighbor's mule. I hate mules because I think they look awful, and they sound, that braying that they do sounds terrible. But Dad used the neighbor's horse before Queenie had her baby. But we had 4.
So did you have one horse just to take you back and forth in the buggy, or?
Yes.
And then the rest, the other 3 were to pull implements and things like
Backup.
that?
Yeah, they were backups.
Yeah.
And we'd harness them and everything, but they were good workhorses and everything. When my brother and I had to put the horses to the barn for the rest of the day, when we were done with them, we'd always go at the end of the farm, and him and I'd race from the end of the farm to the barn, see who could get there the fastest with the workhorses. That's hard riding. We didn't have we had a party telephone, and it was where you crank it. Our telephone line was 2 longs and 2 shorts, We was on a party line, so when two longs and two shorts come through, we knew that was our telephone. And everybody listened. Because I know my neighbor lady said, would tell my mother what she heard on the telephone. But today you can't do that, and that's a good thing. That's one of the good improvements on telephones, was you can't hear what people are saying on the party line at all. My dad and I, well, he was building a bank barn, and he wanted to extend his barn. So Mother said, now don't you go down there, and because there's snakes down there. Well, that roused my curiosity. She was going to the truck patch, back about probably half of our farm. The truck patch is way back there. Well, that was too much for Pauline. So Pauline had to go down and see the snakes. I didn't see any snakes, but when I was down at the barn, I looked up, and my mother was down in that field looking up at me. And I knew she saw me, and I knew I was going to get a licking. So I go to the house. I go upstairs and get some books, and I put the books in my underpants. Well, Mother come up, and she gave me a scolding. Why did you go down there? And I told you not to do that, because I had to see the snakes. I told you he was going to get a licking. Well, she put me over her lap, started paddling me, and I didn't cry. And she just couldn't figure out why I didn't cry as hard as she was paddling. Well, she saw those books, and those books came out, and I soon got a paddling in. But, yeah, we got a lot of scolds, but my brother and I is pretty ornery. We raised a lot of chickens, and this is ornery stuff. My cousin had come from South Whitley to visit that day, and Mother told me to go gather the eggs. Well, we thought it was fun to gather the eggs, but I took the eggs and we threw the eggs against a wall to see the eggs run down the wall. Now, I knew that my mother would be upset with me because that was her money, and I shouldn't have done it. I knew better than that, but it was fun. It was fun. That was some of our play work.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your days here in Whitley County? Well, tell us a little about after you got married and your mail route and things like that. Anything you'd like to share on your mail route? I'm sure you had some funny things happen delivering mail here.
I delivered U.S. mail for 30 years here in Whitley County. Yes, I had some wonderful experience. I had Route 2 out of Columbia City, and I knew everybody on that route. And then I went to Route 6, and I drove Route 6 for 11 years, and I subbed Route 1 for 13 years. So I had a lot of routes that I drove on. On Route 6, I'd come up to this mailbox, and he said, "Help, help." And I sat there, and I thought, should I go in and see what's going on? So I did. And he was a man that lived, Miller was his name, lived off Lincoln Way. And the man said, "I need help. They took my car and left, and they're not coming back." And he said, "My wife was left too," and said, "She's not coming back either." Well, his wife was sitting in the dining room, and I was talking to him, and I said, "Mr. Miller, I'll get you help." His son lived down the road. So I went around my route to the son's house, and I went in there and I said, "Your dad needs help," because I think he's losing his mind too. But his car was there and his wife was there. But I did get him help. I can't remember too many exciting things. Somebody put a bird in the mailbox one day, and I opened the mailbox, and the bird flew in my car and pooped all over my car inside. I do remember that. And there were some days when my husband was a U.S. mail carrier too. And one year it snowed, I think it was a year of 78, is that when the blizzard was? And the day that we went and delivered mail after that, we had a pickup truck, a Chevy pickup truck, and we filled that bed with a mail, U.S. mail, and I rode with him. He'd drive up to the mailbox, and I'd get out of the truck and stand on the snow. Then I'd lean over and put the mail in the mailbox then. And that's how we got all of his mail delivered that year. And because we didn't go, I think, for 4 or 5 days. And that happened to me one time too, and that's a lot of mail to deliver at one time. Back then they had the Journal and the Columbia City Paper and all the magazines. Prairie Farmer, Farmer's Journal, Farmer's Guide, TV guides, Reader's Digest, and today they don't have that at all. So they don't have much mail like we did back then. I enjoyed the mail route. People were good. You got a lot of cookies and pies and stuff. I enjoyed that. I can't think anything drastic that really happened to me. Changed a lot of flat tires. One day I changed 3 flat tires. And a semi-driver drove up beside me. He said, stopped and said, "You need help." And he said, I think you know what you're doing, I'll just go on. He didn't help me or anything. I finished getting that tire on. But today the tires are really heavy compared to what they are back then. I think Whitley County life is good. I was in 4-H for 10 years. I was in sewing and had a dairy steer, a Jersey dairy steer, but she looked like a Guernsey. And I bought it from George LaRue at Cherry-Busco. I didn't get first prizes or anything, but it was a good experience, so I love 4-H. It was a good experience knowing what they do here. And back then at 4-H time, where the community building was, we had a great big tent up there, and the beef and the dairy was in that tent. And then just this way north of the community building, they put posts around, they put a rope around, and that was our show ring then at that time. And I helped serve food out of the shelter house over here. Ruby Leedy and I was chairman one year. And we made a lot of hamburgers, sloppy joes, hot beef sandwiches, and pies. And back then, when you was 4-H member, the mothers, if how many was in 4-H, you had to bring 2 pies per 4-H member back then. And I can remember a lot of people brought pies in that we had put back in the oven and bake a little bit longer. They didn't bake them long enough. But the 4-H has really improved. The community building is a wonderful asset to our 4-H program.
What kind of stove did you use there in the shelter house? When you baked those pies, were they wood-fired stoves or what?
We had electric stoves in the shelter house to work with, and Adolph Auer was our guy that helped us carry stuff. Adolph Auer from South Willie, he carried things for us. But basically, it was all paper plates and plastic silverware back then. And where the building that they covered up here, the storage area, they sold pop and candy bars and popsicles and stuff. And I can remember the first year I come to 4-H fair. That was something for me to go to 4-H fair. I just ate snacks all day. And did I get sick? I was sick from all that. So I soon learned that you eat good food. You eat good food when you come to the 4-H fair. You don't eat popsicles, drink pop, candy bars all day. Because that was a treat for us back then.
So what was your menu back in those days at the shelter house? What did you sell? You talked about pies and would you have any hamburgers? What all did you sell out of the windows there at the shelter house?
Basically hot dogs, hot ham, and hot beef. Did I say hot beef? And not too many hamburgers because we didn't have a way to fry them or anything like that. We had about 3 electric stoves in there that we worked on.
So is that where the hot beef sandwich got its reputation?
Yes.
Starting there in the shelter house?
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything else you'd like to share with us, Pauline? You covered quite a bit of territory here.
About the hardest job I ever did. You guys will think this is terrible, but my dad was plowing an alfalfa field. Now you know what alfalfa roots are, and it was on old gumbo dirt, and the horses would not pull. The tractor would not pull the plow. So my dad got the bright idea to hook the horses in front of the tractor to pull. So my job was to sit on top of the tractor and drive those horses all day. Now it was hard work, and it was very dangerous too, but Dad didn't think about that. But we got that field plowed though.
So how did you turn the corners then when you had horses and a tractor? How could you get them both turned to this, so you got back on the...
The horses went faster than the tractor because I made sure the horses went. We had 2 horses that I drove, and I made sure the horses went faster than the tractor, and the dad would slow the tractor down too. Now today, what they do is hook another tractor on top in front of the other tractor. Is what they've done too.
So you drove the horses, and your dad drove the tractor.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I was sick that night. That was the hardest job I ever done, I think.
Yeah.
And that plus thrashing. And one day Dad was sick, and he put us kids out in the wheat field, and my job was to throw the wheat bundles up on the wagon. And that was hard work. But I was sick that night too.
Do you remember the thrashing rings back there when they did?
Oh yes, I have a picture of Dad in the thrashing ring that they came to my house, our house, and I love thrashing day because we had about 6 people in the thrashing ring, and McKinley Richard had the old thrash machine, and my mother fixed the best meal. Oh, it was just wonderful. Fried chicken or steak or something. The guys had come up from thrashing, and I had 2 big wash tubs outside that they could wash in, and they could dry their hands and stuff, then come in the house and eat. But we'd have about 20 guys to eat dinner with us. But boy, was that meal good. Homemade pie and everything. But the thrashing ring, I have a picture of my dad at the thrashing ring at our house with the clean straw. And we used the straw back then. We had feather ticks or straw ticks for our mattress. And after we had new straw, the main thing was to take that mattress and dump the old straw and put new straw in there, and that was our mattress back then. And we about froze to death when we went to bed because it's not warm or anything. Today, they wouldn't do that at all. But we had straw ticks for our mattress. When my dad moved from Thorn Creek Township to Washington Township, the way he moved his hay from up on the Cummins farm to Washington Township was with the wagon and the horses. And I know he made many trips with that. The other picture I have is the thrashing ring at our house where I lived when I was growing up. I grew up south of Washington Township all my life, only moved 6 miles from there when I was married. So basically, and I lived there until 2000. I moved to Columbia City then. So I would come to town because farming was too much for me. Mowing 6.5 acres of lawn was too much for me. So I had to come to town and live. Can't think of anything else, Ron.
That's fine. We'll show the pictures and that's fine. Well, thank you very much, Pauline. I appreciate taking the time to share with us, and we appreciate all the information you've given us. So thank you very much.
Yes, I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.